It is Monday, August 24th, 2020. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And it was yet another non-virtual get your ass kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Monday. Although I did not get my ass kicked today, I did not actually do any sparring, much to my shame and disappointment, but I've been terribly busy over the last couple days. I've been trying to get ready for a yearly event. I'm not going to really go into it, only to say that I've been very busy doing a hell of a lot of work. Last night I was up until like 1:30 just trying to crank it all out, trying to get everything all situated and squared away. Although I know that I still have yet a little bit more to do, and then it'll be pretty much smooth sailing all the way through until the end. But it's getting there, you know? It's getting there. That's always the challenge. But as far as jiu-jitsu went today, we're doing more stuff from the reverse De La Riva position, and I got a little bit better with the parts where we get inverted. Like today, it was a reverse De La Riva switching to I think it was a tripod sweep. That was the first one. The second one was a little bit different. It was a berimbolo kind of thing. And, I think I described this a bit on Friday or Wednesday of last week that, I don't have as much experience in the inversions and leg balance stuff or leg based stuff rather, than a lot of people do. At least, in the place where I got my belt, we didn't do as much leg game stuff. And so it's not something that I don't have any basis for, but it's something that I've always had the most trouble with getting like down, getting it all correct. And so it was especially challenging today. But I don't know. I think I managed to get a couple good reps in. This one it was kind of interesting because you start off from the reverse De La Riva position, and then it's like a push-pull thing. And when you pull your opponent in you get them to step forward so that you can spin around and get up under their legs, under them, in between their legs. And then you do like a cross guard situation and push their other leg out. And I always have trouble with this, or at least I've been having trouble with this, because it requires some adjustment on your leg position and having your legs in the right spot. It's not something that I'm as accustomed to looking for. And there's also the matter of the 3 months that I didn't actually get to train. So, I'm having to deal with a lot of shit. Just happy to be back to it, honestly, to tell you the truth. But yeah, it's a reverse De La Riva. I know that I'm only now starting to feel comfortable in the inverted position, and it's weird because today was the first time that I actually got my head in the right position. I kept getting it too shallow, and so when I was rolling over, I was like rolling over on my neck instead of on my shoulders like I was supposed to. It's kind of like a Granby roll in that you want to be rolling like with your shoulders as the base instead of rolling up to where your neck is the base of it. So it's a little confusing with me. I've always had trouble with that. Anything from like hips down, the coordination has always been a little more challenging for me. And I can only credit some of the physical therapy I've been doing to try and get my hip back, even though I'm still feeling a little twinge now and then with that. It is greatly improved over where I started, and I think it's because of some of the lateral foot movements that I've been doing to try and get it back, But yeah, So it was a tougher day for me. I'll be honest. It was a little bit tougher, and I think this is one of the reasons why I refrained so much in just trying to immediately find a gym to go back to. I mean, I was very, very eager to get back to training, but at the same time, I held just a little bit of reservation in it that no matter where I started from, I would be facing this issue of having to get back what I'd already earned, as far as like my physical capability and shit. And so, it was like I was telling my partner in classes that, the movements in jiu-jitsu are unusual enough. Getting inverted, all that, they're unusual enough. But transitioning from one style of jiu-jitsu to another style of jiu-jitsu after a very significant gap, I feel like I'm trying to make excuses here for my performance, but, it does account for something. And as honest as I try to be with myself, I do have to be honest with myself about that too, that it's just too much to really expect to just jump right back into it after all that time away and jumping into a different style and expect to have the same level of competency and capability as I had before. So I'm trying not to be too disappointed with the way I've been performing, because I am making some progress. But at the same time, it is kind of aggravating because I worked really fucking hard to get to where I was. So, oh well. I'm sure I will get there again soon. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down with some music. And we're going to start with Body Count. But where to begin? Here we go. Surviving the Game. First Dance, here on Coin Metal. And that was Sixth with Golden Cufflinks. And so, as far as what we're going to cover tonight, I haven't the slightest clue. Did a little digging around on the old Twitter, though. And a few other places on it. And I did scrounge up some stuff. And I did find some stuff that I am interested in covering today. So, that's exactly what we're going to cover. And the first thing I got here, I'm trying to find exactly which one I wanted to start on, and I think this is a good enough one. This is on Bitcoin.com, or news.bitcoin.com rather. IMF publishes cryptocurrency explainer saying it could be the next step in the evolution of money, and this is by Kevin Helms. And this is authored approximately 12 hours ago. So yes, penis. International Monetary Fund has published a video explaining what cryptocurrency is. Besides suggesting that cryptocurrency could, quote-unquote, completely change the way we sell, buy, save, invest, and pay our bills, the video states that, quote, it could be the next step in the evolution of money. IMF explains crypto. The IMF tweeted a video explaining what cryptocurrency is on Sunday that instantly went viral, referring to cryptocurrency as, quote, a special currency. The 2-minute video attempts to outline its benefits and payments, such as by removing middlemen, lowering costs, and increasing transaction speed. It also warns of what it sees as risks, such as anonymity and volatility. The video has garnered more than 523,000 views at the time of writing. It has been retweeted approximately 5,500 times and liked 8,200 times, and received 807 comments. The video ends with, quote, if we can counter the risks, then this new technology or some variation of it can completely change the way we sell, buy, save, invest, and pay our bills, and who knows, this could be the next step in the evolution of money. The video references the IMF's F&D, Finance and Development magazine, June 2018 edition, entitled, quote, Money Transformed, the Future of Currencies in a Digital World. When that magazine edition came out, the organization posted the above video on its YouTube channel, which received little interest at the time. Many people in the crypto space viewed the IMF's video as bullish. Pfft, whatever. Tweets such as, quote, IMF learning fast, global adoption is on its way. Pfft, whatever. This is a big deal. And they are finally understanding blockchain and cryptocurrency are not going away, flooded Twitter. One user wrote, quote, I still can't believe this. IMF shills cryptocurrencies, of course. Not Bitcoin yet, but that time will come too. No, it never will. The IMF is thinking about the fucking SDR. That's what they're thinking about. Anyway, continuing. Since the IMF's Crypto Explainer video does not mention any specific cryptocurrency, many commenters took the opportunity to promote their favorite coins. Some people, however, criticized the content of the IMF video, saying that the information is misleading and omits many important points, including mining. You know, the part that you do. Many also believe that Bitcoin should have been mentioned. Quote, nothing about why people choose to store their wealth in a scarce currency like Bitcoin instead of fiat currencies that are benign, constantly debased by banksters and quintillionaires. One user tweeted, quote, you forgot one fundamental difference between fiat and Bitcoin. Fiat is printable by centralized entities like government and banks, whereas Bitcoin is decentralized and has a limit cap to its supply, where only 21 million will ever exist in this universe, all powered by blockchain. Liar. Some questioned who the, quote, bad guys in the video are supposed to be, and frowned upon it, referring to private keys as passwords. Some say the video gives the appearance that all cryptocurrencies share the properties of Bitcoin, and some suspect that the IMF is planning to launch its own cryptocurrency. One user noted that this video is set up like a, quote, prelude to their own crypto coin that will come out at some point, fixing all the problems with crypto that the IMF has outlined in this video. Let me see if there's any comments on this one. Let's see. It says comments below, but I'm not seeing a comment link. Yeah. Fuck the IMF. I mean, really, the suspicion that they want to set everybody up for their own cryptocurrency is probably the most accurate. You know, they downplay a lot of what is going on in this space because it doesn't require them. They do not need to exist in order for Bitcoin to work. They don't need to exist for Ethereum to work. They don't need to exist for any cryptocurrency to work. And because of that, they are very, very scared. They want to keep their fucking jobs. But they're competing with kids. That is something that is completely lost on the majority of the market. You are competing with kids and 20-somethings. And they are kicking your ass. And they will keep kicking your ass. Why? Because they don't have the same cost profile that you do. They don't worry about being regulated. They don't worry about being certified. They worry about whether or not their fucking code works. And that they can transmit money from themselves to anybody else in the world without ever giving you any of it. That's what they're worried about. And because there's this big differential in priorities that they don't give a fuck if they're legal by your definition, you are going to lose. The economic displeasure from money entering in the crypto space and not circulating in the fiat space is, I believe it is already being felt. I believe that a lot of these bankers are looking at the money that's floating around in crypto, and it's probably a few billion now, a few $100 billion maybe, that is flowing around in crypto, and they're saying we've got to do something about this, because if Bitcoin catches on too much, we're going to lose our grip entirely. Even though we do have some Bitcoin, and even though we do have some mining facility, The fact of the matter is that it can all be made useless tomorrow. And then they're out to get you to adopt their fucking language, adopt their mentality, adopt their memetics. But the problem is those things don't actually work out according to their definitions. And so when you're coding it, when you're authoring code and whatnot, you know the difference between what they're talking about and what you're doing. I strongly suspect anybody who's competent enough to be trying to program anything for Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies in general is probably well aware of the differential between even the presentations given in white papers as to how something is supposed to function and how it actually does function. When you extend that out to people that they don't even have any say over what you do. I mean, the IMF can talk all they want about, like, say, Dogecoin. They can tell you shit like, oh my god, people can deal drugs on this and we can't stop them, so we got to end it. Yeah, whatever. People can send their money from here to Uganda, back to their parents in Uganda, and nobody can stop them. And nobody can get a little clip of it. Except for maybe the miners. And if they're using any third-party payment services providers, such as Lightning. And see, I think that's it's another one of those omissions that the IMF makes when they're talking about cryptocurrencies. As a matter of fact, I think I dug up their little explainer here. And let's get into it. This is on imf.org. Back to basics. What are cryptocurrencies? A potential new form of money offers benefits while posing risks. And this is by Antoinette Bouvier and Vikram Haksar. Hundreds of them have sprouted with fanciful names like Primecoin, Dash, and Verge. They have developed cult-like followings among the tech-savvy. Their values fluctuate wildly. Some people say these mysterious bits of computer code will someday replace money as we know it. It already has. What exactly are these cryptocurrencies, and what makes people think they're worth anything at all? To answer these questions, let's look at how money evolved. Uses of money. Money serves as a store of value, a means of exchange for goods and services, and a unit of account that measures value. No, you are the one who measures value. The unit of account is the way you ascribe value to it. Anyway, continuing on. Before money, human societies exchanged goods and services directly, a bushel of grain for a pig, say. This is not very efficient. Actually, it is more efficient than anything we're doing right now. As societies grew more complex, commodity monies were developed, from seashells to copper, silver, and gold. Some states introduced fiat money, which has no intrinsic value other than the promise to pay, such as paper money in 8th century China under the Tang dynasty. And of course it had been debased just like everybody else. Many early forms of fiat money were neither very stable nor widely accepted, as people did not believe the issuer would honor the commitment to redeem the money. Governments were tempted to print more money to buy goods or raise wages, which fueled inflation. Think of people moving cash around in wheelbarrows in post-World War I Germany. Modern central banks seek to maintain price stability by regulating the supply of money on behalf of governments. Bookkeeping and ledgers. An increasingly extensive complex financial system gave rise to the need for trusted intermediaries and credible accounting systems. The development of double-entry bookkeeping in Renaissance Italy was a major innovation that strengthened the role of large private banks. In modern times, central banks emerged at the apex of payment systems, with computerized banks, ledgers, the coordinating role of central banks increased. How do such ledgers work? Financial institutions adjust the positions of their account holders in their internal ledgers, while the bank validates transactions among financial institutions on a central ledger. For example, Murnaz uses money from her account in Bank A to buy goods from Mary, who has an account in Bank B. Bank A debits the money from Murnaz's account. The central bank moves money from Bank A to Bank B and records the transaction in its central ledger. Bank B then adds money to Mary's account. As you can see, the money is based on trust in the central bank and its ability to safeguard the integrity of the central ledger and ensure that the same money is not spent twice. No, they ensure that it's spent billions of times. Continuing on. With many cryptocurrencies, on the other hand, there is no need for a trusted central agent. Instead, they rely on distributed ledger technology. No, they rely on mining a blockchain to construct a ledger, effectively a database, which it's not, that is maintained across the network. To ensure that the same cryptocurrency is not spent twice, each member of the network verifies and validates transactions using technologies derived from computing and cryptography, i.e. mining. Once a decentralized consensus is achieved among members of the network, miners, the transaction is added to the ledger, which is validated by the miners. The ledger provides a complete history of the transactions associated with a particular cryptocurrency that is permanent and cannot be manipulated by a single entity, unless they're the only ones that are mining it. This ability to achieve consensus on the validity of transactions between accounts in a distributed network is a foundational technological shift. Network members who verify and validate transactions are usually rewarded with newly minted cryptocurrency. Actually, they're in a race to do so. Many cryptocurrencies are also pseudo-anonymous. Holders of the currency have two keys. One is public, such as an account number. Another, private key, is required to complete a transaction. So to continue the previous example, Miraz wants to buy goods from Mary using a cryptocurrency. To do so, she initiates a transaction with her private key. Miraz is identified in the network by her public key, ABC, and Mary is identified by hers, XYZ. Network members verify that ABC has the money she wants to transfer to XYZ by solving a cryptography puzzle. Once the puzzle is solved, the transaction is validated, a new block representing the transaction is added to the blockchain, and the money is transferred from ABC's wallet to XYZ's. Here's a big difference. When Bank A sends money from Mary's account to what's her face? The other bitch, when she sends the money to the other person who she wants to send money to, I guess Murnaz in this scenario, the bank has I think it's 3 to 5 business days to finalize that transaction for the funds to finally settle. And so that everybody in the world, or at least everybody that will be associated with Bank B, knows, or actually they won't know because it operates differently. Anyway, Bank B will not finally settle the transaction for 3 to 5 business days. They may actually credit Murnaz's account with the money from the transaction prior to final settlement of the transaction. But this is where it's different than fiat currencies are different from Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, is that assuming that the transaction makes it into a block, or like right within the first confirmation time. So assuming we're operating on the Bitcoin network, the transactions have approximately 10 minutes before they will be finally settled, or before you will get first confirmation. that your transaction has been settled. That the entire network knows that you sent money from ABC to XYZ, and it happens within 10 minutes. Not 3 to 5 business days, 10 minutes. That's how Bitcoin is supposed to work. Of course, things have been fudged since we started limiting block sizes to 1 megabyte, but that's neither here nor there. The point being is that it doesn't involve having to send it to all the banks, and it doesn't take 3 to 5 business days for final settlement. It takes 10 minutes at optimal conditions that you get in within 10 minutes of your transaction being initiated. So yeah, doing the same thing that central banks that the IMF works with do in 3 to 5 business days, we do in 10 minutes. So yeah, that's a major shift. Continuing on. Benefits and risks. Now that we understand the technology, even though we haven't told you shit about miners, let's return to the genesis of cryptocurrencies. The first one, Bitcoin, was introduced in 2009 by a programmer or group of programmers using the pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto. As of April 2018, there were more than 1,500 cryptocurrencies according to CoinMarketCap.com, along with Bitcoin, Ether, and Ripple are the most widely used. Despite the hype, cryptocurrencies still don't fulfill the basic functions of money as a store of value, means of exchange, and unit of account. That's complete and total bullshit. We achieved that back in 2009. Continuing, because their value is highly volatile, which happens mostly on the fiat side, it's not happening on our side because our supply is deterministically created on a 10-minute interval. Continuing on. They have little use so far as a unit of account or store of value. That's bullshit too. Limited acceptance for payment restricts their use as a medium of exchange. Actually, anybody can use Bitcoin to do a transaction. The question is whether or not you want to cut anybody in it, other than yourself. Continuing on. Unlike with fiat money, the cost of producing many cryptocurrencies is high, reflecting the large amount of energy needed to power the computers that solve the cryptographic puzzles. Finally, decentralized issuance implies there is no entity backing the asset, so acceptance is based entirely on users' trust. And you know what? It's the same with fiat currencies too. That's why banks can get away with debasing them to hell before the fucking public is carrying them around in fucking wheelbarrows. Continuing on. Cryptocurrencies and their underlying technologies offer benefits, but also carry risks. Distributed ledger technology could reduce the cost of international transfers, including remittances, and foster financial inclusion. Actually, you know what? That right there is why the IMF is even fucking interested in Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies. Because 9 years previous to the publish of this, we started doing that. And by the time this thing was published, we'd been doing it for 9 years. Continuing on. Some payment services now make overseas transfers in a matter of hours, not days. Yeah, they do that because of us. It literally took days, if not weeks, before cryptocurrencies started taking it out from under them. Continuing on. Some payment services now make the technology can provide benefits beyond the financial system. For example, it can be used to securely store important records, such as medical histories and land deeds. On the other hand, the pseudo-anonymity of cryptocurrencies makes them vulnerable to use in money laundering and terrorism financing. If no intermediary checks the integrity of the transactions or identity of the people making them, cryptocurrencies could eventually present challenges for central banks, were they to effect control over the money supply and therefore the conduct of monetary policy. Yeah, we're making them watch their P's and Q's, and we're making them change their policies because we are out competing them. It's very, very simple. When they want to make a change, it takes them months to arrive at some sort of consensus as to what change should take place and how they're going to apply it. Within cryptocurrencies, it doesn't take that long. Somebody puts a fucking BIP out there, And if 80% of the miners or more decides that they like it and they want to implement it, they can. No referring back to the IMF or the EU or the US government or anybody else. They say we want to run code for this BIP, and that's it. They're flagging support for that BIP. Everything is cool. And it's really sad to me to see this kind of mentality going on at the IMF at this stage in the game. You know, the idea that lying to the public, omitting the vast swaths of information that'll change your understanding of what they're saying incredibly. To me, that's something that you do within the first 3 years. You don't do that in year 9, where a bunch of kids in dormitories have been kicking your ass and rendering you fucking obsolete. I mean, seriously, these guys determine monetary policy for fiat currencies, and they're doing the same job that all those kids that are developing for Ethereum are doing. Only the kids that are doing it in Ethereum, they're not doing it for money. They're not even doing it for some international organization. They're doing it on their own behest, because they want to see a cryptocurrency do a specific thing that it does not currently do. I mean, that is probably the biggest difference between reality and the mimetic that they're trying to produce in your mind with the way that they're couching this information. Is that the participation level between the image they're trying to portray to you and the reality is night and day. Night and day. It's kids. It's people like you and me who are mining. And of course it's kids too. It's like 18-year-olds, 16-year-olds who are figuring out how to set up their miners and blazing away into the night. And they're probably not even doing it for a hell of a lot of money. But it's more money than they would have been making if they were flipping burgers for you. Yeah. Try to account for that. And I really think that's where the IMF misses it. Because they like to talk about their control, you know, that they can control supply and that affects the relative value of things. Yeah, you know, that's the control that they have. But in any other system, we would call that manipulation. And it's no different if it's a central bank manipulating the currency or if it's some stupid-ass developer. It's still manipulation. Just because we accept it as normal operating procedure for them to rob us or credit us with monetary value, it does not change the fact that it is the product of manipulation. And worse yet, it's non-transparent. You can't see. They don't tell you. It happens, and they might tell you afterward, you know, 2 to 3 months after they've had an opportunity to front run every trade that you've made with a vast and sweeping change in monetary policy behind the doors that they don't even bother to notify you about, that they don't have to notify you about. Try that shit in Bitcoin. It doesn't fly. There is no IMF to wave a magic wand and make all the miners suddenly mine some BIP or no longer have valid currency or transactions. They just can't. And I doubt that they'll have a network powerful enough ever to do it. Because if they did present enough competing hash power, I believe they would draw miners out of the woodwork. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down with some music. And I got something playing in the background, sounds kind of exciting. Yeah, this is Irreversible Mechanism. I'm always like leery with them because their stuff is really complex and technical. But like, some of it is like kind of airy-fairy and I don't know how else to explain that. But yeah. Let's go beyond with a little bit of, actually, you know, I think we'll do Absolution by an irreversible mechanism here on CoinMetal. Maybe. I don't know. It's kind of sounding airy-fairy. I don't know. It's a long song. Maybe it'll change. Here we go. And that was Death Clock with Sky Hunter. And so, as far as where else we're going to be going tonight, I got this one. I was kind of tempted to get into it because it's one of those things. But I have more. I had other stuff I wanted to get into here, and I opened up some stuff, and that wasn't it. Yeah. You know, people make all kinds of assessments and predictions about, you know, how things are going to go and what policies we're going to adopt and all that. And really what determines all of that is you. What currencies you trust enough to use. What means that you find useful. It's really that. You know, which ones do you trust the most? Which ones do you expect to devalue? Which ones do you expect to appreciate in value? This is all up to you. You're the one that assesses all of that, not some central bank anywhere, not the IMF, not the OCC, not the U.S. Treasury, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, and so, you know, when people are making these predictions, you've got to keep that in mind. Which ones will I use? Do I trust that one? Do I trust these people who have been managing this currency that has been devalued right while it's in my pocket to run a digital currency? Or do I want to hand that roll off to a bunch of kids and 20-somethings who are doing the process of mining out of their own self-interest? And so, when you're in that kind of context, trying to be too quick about making a statement or, you know, concerning what role crypto would play or anything like I think it's premature, and I think it's assuming a lot on your own authority there. And so here I got this article on it was originally, I guess, on Cointelegraph, so we're going to go there. I had found it on Zero Hedge, but they tend to propagate stuff. So, got this here. It's on Cointelegraph.com. What role will crypto play during the Great Reset? And this is authored on August 19th, 2020, so it's a little old, but we're going to go with it anyway. The global economic transformation now faces the main question: what to choose, centralization or decentralization? It'll go to decentralization no matter what. And this is by Raul Melhado. So, yes, penis. A global pandemic, massive worldwide protests, job automation, environmental issues, and geopolitical tensions are just a few of the challenges facing humanity today. Amid the chaos, keystone global institutions and bureaucrats have openly discussed the present day as an opportunity to remake the world. Quote, the Great Reset, as the plan has been called, represents a radical initiative by world leaders, many of whom are unelected, to transform the global economy. The World Economic Forum, for instance, claims there is an urgent need for global stakeholders to manage the direct consequences of what the International Monetary Fund has called, quote, the Great Lockdown, referring to the quarantines and social distancing practices implemented to contain the pandemic. At a WF meeting in early June, the world's most powerful business leaders, government officials, and activists first announced the proposal to reset the global economy in the aftermath of the COVID-19 lockdown. You know what they used to call that? They used to call that a jubilee. Anyway, continuing on. The WEF sees a, quote, unique window of opportunity to shape the recovery. The Great Reset will inform the, quote, future state of global relations, the direction of national economies, the priorities of societies, the the nature of business models, and the management of global commons. In other words, all of the streams, rivers, blah, 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 continue. In short, the Great Reset represents a new social contract for the world. The WEF also stated, quote, the inconsistencies, inadequacies, and contradictions of multiple systems, from health to financial to energy and education, are exposed more than ever. Fuck you. It's the dynamism of that differential that is like the basis for all competition and innovation. So, fuck you again. Continuing on. Writing for The Hill, Justin Haskins calls the Great Reset, quote, the most ambitious and radical plan the world has seen in more than a generation. Even the British monarchy has weighed in, quote, we have a golden opportunity to seize something good from the crisis. An unprecedented shockwaves may well make people more receptive to big visions of change. Yeah, you scared the shit out of them, and so now you're trying to pass shit that they would never agree to while they're of rational mind. Fuck you, said Prince Charles at the meeting, adding, quote, it is an opportunity we have never had before and may never have again. Fuck you. Many details of the Great Reset won't be rolled out until the WEF meets at Davos, Switzerland in January of 2021. It is clear, however, that world leaders have big plans of a new world order, and contrary to the founding principles of Bitcoin and crypto, centralization seems to be a big part of it. Quote, every country from the United States to China must participate, and every industry from oil and gas to tech must be transformed, wrote Klaus Schwab, the founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum, in an article published on the WEF's website. He added, quote, in short, we need a great reset of capitalism. In other words, we need to steal everything you fucking earned and delete it. Continuing, Schwab said all aspects of our societies and economies, from education and social contracts and working conditions, must be revamped. Wrong. The cryptocurrency industry has been planning its own Great Reset as well, one based on decentralization. While global governments want to put the world on a distributed ledger in order to digitize finance so governments can have more control, there are very smart people on this planet who have their own plans. We in the crypto industry, for example, want to put everything on blockchains instead of social credit systems and centralized fiat currencies. We want each individual to be in control of their own money, to be less dependent on banks, and to be in control of defining what money and real value is. The Great Reset will be a revolutionary upheaval. It will create many hardships, but also opportunities for companies which recreate financial products in a decentralized fashion on blockchain for individuals who no longer must rely on the traditional financial system. As we find ourselves in a digital and technological revolution hastened by the Great Lockdown, we as an industry cannot underestimate the implications of a crisis that has only just begun. We must now change our mindsets in order to properly bear witness to the Great Reset and turn it into the Great Awakening. That is how we come out stronger on the other side. We'll need to reconsider everything, including money. We must ask ourselves questions such as, what is the abstraction we call money? As an industry, for instance, we'll need to place less emphasis on price. No, that's incorrect. We'll need to stop celebrating the development of central bank digital currencies as victories for cryptocurrency. Oh yeah, I agree with that. The fact is, CBDCs are not cryptocurrencies. They're more like credit cards than cryptocurrency. Satoshi Nakamoto saw an economic dislocation like the Great Reset coming. He etched the now famous line into the Bitcoin network's Genesis block. Quote, The Times, 03 January 2009, Chancellor on brink of second bailout for banks. The 2008 financial crisis and the consequent bailouts of the too-big-to-fail banks had inspired him to release the open source and peer-to-peer money. Quote, "The root problem with conventional currency is that all of the trust that's required to make it work," wrote Satoshi, adding, quote, "The central bank must be trusted not to debase the currency, but the history of fiat currencies is full of breaches of that trust. Banks must be trusted to hold our money and to transfer it electronically, but they lend it out in waves of credit bubbles with barely a fraction in reserve. We have to trust them with our privacy, trust them not to let identity thieves drain our accounts." While world leaders openly announce the Great Reset, imploring the world to trust their vision, they paint a picture of a future a more centralized world. Contrarily, Satoshi stressed the importance of decentralization. Quote, "A lot of people automatically dismiss e-currency as a lost cause because of all the companies that failed since the 1990s, he wrote, adding, "I hope it's obvious it was only the centrally controlled nature of those systems that doomed them. I think this is the first time we're trying a decentralized, non-trust-based system." Satoshi believed peer-to-peer solutions and decentralization gave people back their freedom. He thought decentralization was a poignant answer to centralization and monopolies. Quote, "You will not find a solution to political problems in cryptography. Yes, but we can win a major battle in the arms race and gain a new territory of freedom for several years," he wrote. "Governments are good at cutting off the heads of centrally controlled networks like Napster, but pure peer-to-peer networks like Nutella and Tor seem to be holding their own. For how many years we can hold this, quote, new territory of freedom depends entirely on how well the cryptocurrency industry adapts to the Great Reset. People have only just begun to lose their livelihoods, that is, their businesses, their jobs, and so on, as a result of, quote, the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression." Actually, this shit's all been engineered, dude. And continuing, we've seen increased digitization in 2020, and from artificial intelligence to blockchain to distributed ledgers, the Great Reset will only hasten this trend as the Great Lockdown hastened similar trends. As central banks create their own digital currencies, the cryptocurrency industry is building their own digital economy too. After PC World published an article commenting on WikiLeaks' adoption of Bitcoin to circumvent the financial blockade against the whistleblower organization, Satoshi wrote, quote, "It would have been nice to get this attention in any other context. WikiLeaks has kicked the hornet's nest, and the swarm is headed towards us. It would have been nice to get the coming attention in any other context, but the Great Lockdown and subsequent economic depression has kicked the hornet's nest, and the swarm is headed toward us in crypto. The Great Reset might come down to central bank digital currencies versus cryptocurrencies of the people, centralization versus decentralization." Actually, I would go so far as to suggest both. And let me explain that a little bit further. That banks are going to do what they're going to do, and people are going to do what they're going to do. And it is the possibility of them being interchangeable that will maintain both of them. And it's like mining. Okay, I can't tell you how many times I've had arguments with people concerning mining, specifically because of its current state. But what people aren't paying attention to is the fact that it moves around. The mining does not stay in any one place for any duration of time. And there's a reason for that. Is that miners start making money, it draws the ire and the attention of the fucking locals, both socially and politically, and they hammer down on them. They find some fucking excuse to bust them. Or they create some new excuse to bust people. And when that happens, they introduce some additional cost to the process of mining, and the miners say, well, that's really nice. I guess we'll have to look for some place that's a little more amenable to us, that wants us there. And that's where they go. They don't stay in any one place. They're moving to fucking Iran for right now. A lot of mining has been moving to Iran because they're kind of like they're in a really bad mix, because they're having economic issues that are being imposed by the U.S. and of course their allies against them in the form of embargoes and sanctions, and that makes it impossible. Like, they cut them off from the SWIFT network. So that really limits their ability to move money around and do commerce with the rest of the planet. Well, here's Bitcoin. All of a sudden, they don't have to ask permission from the IMF to be able to transact money around. However, they happen to be run by a totalitarian regime, one that doesn't like the fact that the people are mining, and has issued multiple edicts to try and get their finance ministry to make the shit illegal. And so, like, they'll make a statement, and they notice that the electricity use doesn't go down, and the hashing power doesn't go down, within their border, that is. And so they're like, well, why are we wasting our time, costing ourselves face, when the fact of the matter is we could be using these cryptocurrencies to transact with the rest of the planet, buy stuff that we want, that we can't get because it's embargoed or sanctioned from us in every other market. There are people all over the planet that'll transact with us in XRP or Bitcoin or XMR or Litecoin. Why don't we engage with them instead? Why don't we just go ahead and skip off of this business and trying to deal with these people who are trying to contain us financially and trying to break us that way? Why are we fucking around playing the game by their rules? There are people in Russia that'll buy Bitcoin from us directly, probably even give us a premium on it over the U.S., and that'll be that. It's the individuation of values. You do not have any means of coercion that can be exercised against you significant enough to prevent you from trying to benefit yourself from gaining some sort of profit in cryptocurrency. The incentive is just too high to participate. And it's this issue. It's because it's individual. Even among the IMF, I'm sure during all their little meetings that they're having, that there are people within their little groups that they themselves are running miners, or their kids, or some relative is enriching them in the back end via crypto, and none of the other members know. It's the same with all political parties. It's the same, where they are already involved. They are not all that quick to say, oh yeah, we should tax this stuff, because they themselves have millions of dollars in the shit. It's a matter of interest. It's a matter of incentives. Sure, they'll be able to tax you if they change the law, right? But all of a sudden, any kind of money that they have within that particular jurisdiction is going to be subject to that taxation by virtue of them being, say, an American citizen. And so, and there is no escaping that aspect of it. And so, again, Iran, they've been letting up the news a little bit and letting miners move in. They're getting really fucking cheap electricity. And it's making up for the fact that a lot of the hydropower that was fueling mining in China is currently submerged under several feet of water. So, that's going to change the face of mining. It's going to move to elsewhere, and for the most part, it's like I'm looking at a Cointelegraph right now, and I'm looking at the different prices of cryptocurrencies, and the one that I've been noticing has been XMR, Monero. It's gone up. It's almost up 100% since I started watching it. Monero is it's a privacy coin. And there's a significant number of people out there mining it because it is quite rewarding to mine, from what I understand. Of course, it was the favorite of cryptojackers, and I think it still is to some extent. But there are a lot of other legitimate miners that are mining on their network. And I believe no matter what the IMF does, XMR will continue to exist, and people will continue to use it to conduct transactions that they cannot do in SDRs or CBDCs or any of that other bullshit. Because it's all tracked, it's all taxed, and they don't want it taxed. They don't want to pay the state, they don't want to pay the government for transactions that are more or less illegal, according to the law, because of what is being bought. And I think that the law is supposed to be a reflection of our values. And if there are enough people that are using a drug that it's got fucking a global span of users, who the fuck are you to say they can't? Who the fuck are you? Do you really value being able to intercede in the choices other people make with regard to what drugs they want to take, that you're willing to allow for innocent people being mowed down at 3 a.m. because there was a tipster who wanted to make some money from cops, who told them your address. It was some fucking house that he walked by on his way over to his dealer's house or whatever. But he was able to remember your address, and so he gave your address to the cops, and so it was your address that the 3 a.m. no-knock raid happened at. And of course, they didn't announce themselves as police because they didn't want you to flush the drugs down the toilet. And of course, they came out with guns blazing because they didn't want you to shoot them. Are you willing to tolerate that? Family of 2 or 3 people getting mowed down at 3 a.m. because some druggie said that they were some sort of drug house or something like that. It's happened. And worse yet, the fucking cops lied too. There was this one article I read last year where a military veteran, he'd served for quite a while. He and his wife were sitting in their home, and apparently some asshole said that it was a drug house, and they went there conducting a raid, and they killed the inhabitants. And worse yet, they said that the inhabitants shot the cops. What actually happened was there was cops inside the house and there were cops outside the house, all of them firing guns. And the cops outside the house hit some of the cops that were inside the house. But they tried to blame it on the couple. But anyway, point being is that the entire event happened because drugs are illegal. Because drugs are illegal, cops have a right to come to your house and bust you. But if you, like me, find it completely unacceptable that there should be a pretext for the police to come to your home at 3 a.m., not announce themselves as police, break into your home, and execute everybody in that home. I mean, to me, that policy is completely abhorrent, and there isn't anything fucking American about it. It's completely unconstitutional. I mean, I can't even think offhand how many times they violate the amendments to the Constitution, just creating the pretext for that raid. But it is that mentality as far as policy goes that needs to change. The laws need to be a reflection of the people. If there are enough people using drugs to necessitate a national drug policy, and entire departments full of drug enforcers and drug policy enforcers, then there's probably enough market that it's worth just leaving it alone. And I think that you're going to find that in cryptocurrencies, that if they ever do narrow it down to like the FATF or the IMF or the U.S. Treasury or somebody else, some enforcement agency that comes around and busts people that aren't licensed to mine or anything like that, I think that all you're going to see from that, though, is people getting sneakier about the way that they move money around. You're not going to win. You're not going to win trying to approach it like that. Yeah. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down with some music. And as far as where we're going to go, though, I haven't played any Ministry tonight. Here we go. Rio Grande Blood. Here on Coin Metal. And that was 12-Foot Ninja with One Hand Killing. And it is with that I'd like to close out this episode. Thank you very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support. We will be back again on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so until then, I want y'all to trade safe. Do your homework. Watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. And so as far as our last dance is concerned, I've been scratching around here, and I think it's time for a little Voivod, but their songs tend to be really, really long. So I don't think we can go that route. But I think we do have something else that'll fit. I have not fully evaluated this album yet, so I'm not exactly sure how it's going to turn out, but we're going to go for it anyway. And this is Vola with Vertigo, Last Dance, here on Coin Metal. Thank you again for listening, and y'all have an excellent evening. Good night.